Welcome to the Rad Potential YouTube channel. What is up? We are going to talk about Mazda rotary engine pickup trucks, all the details about them, and what makes these things so unique. So, if you're not subscribed to the channel and you want to learn more about these rotary engines, rotary trucks, rotary cars, FCs, FDs, all the different rotary stuff, go check out the other videos on the channel. There's a bunch of good information there. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. But let's get started talking about these trucks. So, first things first, these trucks were produced from 1974 to 1977 in the United States and Canada only. 1974 was the highest year of production. Total through all 3 years, there was about 15,000 trucks. There was 3,077, 676, and the rest of them were 74 and 75s. In 1974, they made so many of them that with the ongoing whatever economic stuff that was happening at the time, they ended up not producing that many in 75 and rebadged a lot of these 74 models as a 1975. Those were denoted as an S. There's an extra S in the VIN number for those. So what we have before us today are two 1974, actually I think that's a 75, rotary engine pickups. You might ask, they're called a REPU. REPU, R-E-P-U, rotary engine pickup. That's how it gets its name. These trucks came factory with a 13B Mazda rotary engine. That's a 1.3 liter. It would have came with a 4-barrel carburetor and not this side draft. So this truck has a street port 13B in it with a DeLorto side draft. Not the factory setup, but this is a factory REPU 4-port block. What that means is on the intake ports of the rotary engine, there's 4 intake ports. You have 2 on the front, or 1 on the front and rear iron, and 2 in the center iron. 4-port. So these engines from the factory are rated at about 100-ish, 95-ish horsepower and little to no torque, which is why they were surprisingly not very popular back in the 70s when you're comparing these to the likes of a Ford Courier, the likes of the piston engine counterpart, which I think was like a B2000 or a B1600 at the time, as well as your Chevrolet Love. It was just not quite the best truck for the market. But out of all of them, oh yeah, we can't forget the Datsun 5, not the 510, the Datsun Sunny truck, whatever the Datsun is. Anyways, Datsun guys will be mad. Out of all those trucks though, these definitely look the best. Mazda killed it with these box flares on these trucks. They killed it with offering the California mirrors, which these are a custom version, but resemble the California mirror. They killed it with being super proud of their rotary engine. The rotary power on the back is a factory decal. They came like that. And honestly, these trucks are just so timeless and they look awesome despite being maybe outperformed by the piston counterparts. So if you're new to the rotary and you don't know why rotary engines don't exist today, really these engines, they don't have valves, right? So their emissions, their fuel economy, their this, that, and the other is just not the best. There's a lot of unburnt fuel, which makes great flames, but that just makes them not quite, you know, modern enough to keep them produced. The RX-8 ran until 2011, and that was the last rotary engine that's in production. And people will speculate that Mazda's making new rotary stuff. I doubt that it will come out as a primary drivetrain for a car again. So with that being said, getting into the rotary trucks into more detail, let's go over a few things that the early 74s had, a few options, and we're going to talk about the differences between the years and things you can look for that one may make your truck more rare, may make your truck have some really cool parts on it. And to my knowledge, there really isn't anybody that reproduces parts for these trucks. So if you do smash the front of your truck into something and you bang up the headlight bezel, you bang up the grill, there's no hop on JC Whitney and get new parts for them like you can a Jeep or a C10 or something. These are kind of just, they are what they are, and there's only a finite amount of them, and there's not enough of them really to have a market to reproduce things for. So let's jump right into it. 1974, one of the coolest things that you could have on a 1974, if you had an early production model 74, your tailgate would only have one reinforcement rib right here. Notice this one has 2. Mine has 2. Charles' blue truck, which we restored, and I'll link the video, has a single bar tailgate, which is super cool. It's an early 74. From 74 to 76, the trucks were largely unchanged. Same cab, same bed. They changed a couple emissions things throughout the years, but otherwise the same carburetor, same engine. And in 1976 and 77, you could get a 5-speed transmission in these trucks in addition to the 4-speed and the automatic that was offered throughout the years. These trucks are 6-lug, which I believe it's the same as like the Nissan hardbody 6-lug. I don't know the bolt pattern offhand, but these are similar to or the same as like Ford Ranger wheels. So the Ford Ranger 6-lug, these are 14s, I believe. Going further, there was options to get air conditioning on these trucks, and this truck has one of the factory Mazda air conditioning units. So that is this right here. Now, factory Mazda unit did not come carbon fiber, but the plastic of this unit was all broken. So Charles overlaid carbon onto this with resin to hold the plastic together, which is super nice. There was also an option to get a center console for these. It would go up under the dash on either side. It was a blank plate, kind of vertical, 2 little cup holders, and then it actually came back and was pretty level with the seat. Pretty tall guy. These trucks, some of them did not come drilled for a radio like this, and this does not fit a doubled-in radio, but mine's been all hacked up. Charles is lucky to have one that's not hacked up. They do have heat, defrost, the whole deal, and the coolest thing about these, to operate the fan, you actually pull this out like that. The steering wheel over here is not a factory rotary truck steering wheel. That's actually from a RX-5. And then I have an RX-7 steering wheel in mine. The truck steering wheel, I'll find a picture of one, is actually pretty large, has 2 like weird looking wings on it. This seat has been recovered, and mine has a Courier seat, but all of them would have came with a bench seat that largely resembles this. The original pattern was black vinyl. It would have had some silver piping and like a different textured vinyl insert in the back and in the seat bottom. Now, 1977 was a body update for these trucks. The 1977 trucks were 4 inches longer in the cab. Their rear window actually protruded out of the back instead of sitting flush like this. This one literally looks like somebody took a saw and just chopped it off and welded that window in there. On a 1977 as well, the battery door is flush. And it's also scooted back because the cab is longer. So the bed is different on those trucks. Makes it real hard if you have a 77 to find parts, especially if you heard it, because you have to use 1977 only parts. I do not believe from 77 throughout all the years that the frames are noticeably different. I believe they just lengthened the cab, shortened the bed a little bit, and that's kind of all the changes from what the research that I could find. I don't have a 77 here to be able to verify that for you though. The other cool things you can get with these, some of them have a spring-loaded hood prop like this. We'll go pop the hood on my truck, which is, you know, much more patinaed. That means it's worth more money, guys. Patina sells vehicles these days. And mine has the manual latch. Notice, these hoods will break right here. This is very common. They'll get a little rust in there, they'll break. You've seen that I've repaired mine, and they're real flimsy. You can see where the hood is bent along that axis as well. So, quick deals, common rust spots on these trucks, and then we'll go through what we do to kind of help sustain them, where you can find parts. Common rust spots, the floor. It's a 70s truck, guys. These things sat outside, the rotary engine, largely people blow them up. They get rusty. Mine's custom. It's just panels sitting on top of it. Very windy inside my truck. Charles' truck isn't rusty. The other places they rot out, right in here. Also, there's insulation all up on this like cowl area. You can see it here. They'll rust out under that. You get water in here, it sits on a hill wrong, it'll puddle up, and it'll rust out through to the floor on the inside. You'll also have rust accumulate around your windshield. That's just a problem with these old school style rubber seals. Also, both of our trucks have this removed, but over here, where you can see I have all my spare fluids, because in a Rotary, if there isn't oil under it, there isn't oil in it. This would have housed the Evap canister for your fuel tank. So it lived here under a cover, and they commonly rust out behind that Evap cover. So you can remove it, vent the tank, and you'll also see rust come through this seam right here, which is a real popular spot. These beds are all single wall beds. What that means is if you dent the inside of the bed, that dent will show through to the outside of the bed. Fortunately, this bed's pretty dang straight. I've had to hammer some dents out of my wheel wells. Charles, on the other hand, this truck has a few of those dingers where you can see things just kind of caught it wrong, maybe topped over in the bed, hit something, and you can see where it's pushed some of this bodywork out. Just an unfortunate thing of having an old truck, especially when they're cutting corners and making these things pretty cheap. The next bit, how can you sustainably own a Rotary truck? So, fortunately for us, Mazda, when they were producing these trucks, were also producing a piston engine variant. They made a B2000, B2200, 2500, all sorts of different B series trucks that came with the 4-cylinder. Mazda also produced the Ford Courier for Ford, which is actually a Rotary, it's the same cab. The cab is the same. The bed, not the same. Ford Couriers don't have the sweet box flares. The dash is not the same either. So if you do get a Courier cab, largely the doors, the roof, the windshields, the glass is all the same, but the dash isn't. So you'll have to cut the dash out because these are welded in dash structures. The hoods on a Ford Courier are also different. Rotary trucks have a chrome hood line all the way across, and the Couriers actually say Ford. So if you do get a Courier hood to put on your Rotary truck, you've got to weld those holes shut and then re-drill holes to mount the chrome trim, which is this piece right here. They would have said F-O-R-D, or in the case of the Courier we have up there, it says Dorf, D-O-R-F, because why not? So, since you know now that the cabs are the same, if you need a windshield seal for one of these, you can buy one for a B2000 or B2500 or Courier or whatever. You find a windshield seal for that. The window motors and stuff, if you can find them, wipers and stuff, Courier. So you can interchange those parts. Just the large body panels, i.e. your fender flares and everything, that's the best part about the truck. The grills aren't the same. The Rotary truck has its own grill. I think the bumper, the front bumper might be similar on a Courier, but I know the rear bumper is different on the Courier. The rear of a Courier bed has actually like a solid taillight here versus the double bullets. And largely, I think that suspension components between the Courier and the Rotary truck are largely the same. These do have a rather beefy rear axle, and there's a whole slew of different rear end ratios that these came with. My truck has a 462. I think this truck has like a 410 or 411 out of a later model truck with the 5-speed. Like this one drives a lot better on the interstate than this one. Just things to look out for. It's kind of a potluck on what truck you get whenever you want to buy these, and that's the next part of this, finding one. It took me a lot of years to find this truck. As soon as I knew that Rotary trucks existed after I got into RX-7s, I had to have one. It took me a couple years to find this one. My buddy Johnny found it, and then my dad and I road tripped down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to buy it. Basically, sight unseen. I wasn't going to leave without the truck. It wasn't rusty, you know, that bad. At least it didn't present too great in pictures, but it didn't run. We had a trailer. I know this truck Charles bought many years ago, and he got this one out of Dallas. His blue truck he bought was actually a whole slew of different trucks that he's kind of pieced together, but that truck needed a whole floor put in it, needed the door jambs rebuilt and all of that. And speaking of door jambs, one thing I forgot to mention earlier, these trucks, when they rust out and when they go bonkers and crazy, your door hinges right here will rust and these will actually break off and you'll have to rebuild this pillar, which I think Charles did on the blue truck. So, quick little interior tour for you guys. Both of these trucks get driven and they get used as trucks. as much as it would be great to go ahead and fully restore these things, we love them to use them. And that's what most rotary engine pickup truck guys do. You rarely see full-blown show car rotary trucks. There's just such a weird market that there's not fully restored ones. People that own them love them and they use them, and it's just kind of a weirder niche of the mini truck world. I would argue though that there is no cooler mini truck out there than a rotary truck. These things have so much class, so much style. They're so unique. Even if you don't have a rotary engine in it, even if it's whatever, it's still just such a great chassis and such a unique vehicle to cruise around in. And honestly, Charles has front and rear sway bars on his that are pretty big, and his truck handles pretty good. The front steering's a little, you know, it's a 74, a little wandery, but once you get over that and you can get through the sway, they drive really nice. You'd be surprised. I'm 6'4" and I still fit in it and road trip mine, but it's definitely not something you want to try to drive across the country, although you can. Now, with that being said, guys, drop a comment below of your coolest experience ever seeing a rotary truck. I know when I drive mine, Charles drives his, it's countless times that anybody, any range comes up to you at a gas station, asks you what kind of truck it is, asks you if it's a Datsun, if it's a old Dodge D100 or whatever. And it's super cool to tell them about the rotary engine and just explain the truck, you know, and how cool they are and unique. As well as on the interstate, Charles' truck likes to backfire really loud and mine spits flames out the back. So you get a lot of funny looks at nighttime on the interstate when you're driving these things around, especially when you roll up to a stoplight and it's just brapping away in the big ports. So with that, guys, drop any comments or drop any questions in the comments below. I do my best to get you guys the right answers. And I'm stoked that you guys wanted to see these things. There was a couple comments on the videos of me doing the engine swap in my truck, wanting to get more information about the rotary trucks. And after doing some research, there's really no good videos out there that tell a ton about them and show them in an example in front of you. So here we are, showing them off as all of mine's multicolored glory and Charles' survivor status. So with that, guys, thank you guys very much for watching. Definitely go check out the other videos on the channel. We'll see you in the next video. Keep it rad. Come here. Come here. You gotta say bye. You don't run into my truck. You almost ran into me earlier. What? What? Bless you. You good? Credits already rolled? Yeah? Peace, guys.